And here we are, another day, another night, with another episode and yet another story on the Untold.
Yep.
Joined by ALMazeedi, and I'm Hussein Ajouz. How are you, Ahmad?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm great.
I think we have a very interesting character today.
Absolutely.
She is breaking down barriers, leaving 5 years of education, switching, switching to two extremes, I would say. Medical field, engineering field.
Especially in this culture.
Especially in this culture, the pressure that we have from family and friends. But she made it. She had a goal. She's determined. She's a genius.
A big story, I think, that she has. A huge
Lots
story.
of stories.
Absolutely.
Let's not waste any time and welcome our guest right after this. We're back on the Untold, being joined by our very special guest, engineer Maali Salmeen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Untold family.
Welcome to the Untold. And I feel like you have a lot of untold stories to share.
I do. I believe I do. So, this is going to be a nice outlet for all those untold stories.
Right. How about we start with the beginning, right? Which is to me, around graduating high school, trying to figure out what you want to do.
Okay, so I graduated from high school at the age of 15 because I was
a genius, right?
Quote unquote genius.
Could you elaborate on that? I know we're joking, but let's elaborate on that.
I was always a higher achieving child. I was always good with numbers. I was good with learning concepts. So
interesting.
I knew from
a prodigy is what I would call you.
Trying to be humble, but let's say working our way towards that.
Okay.
So naturally, being the smart child, my parents were just like, why don't you study medicine and become a doctor?
How many siblings do you have?
I have 4 sisters.
4 sisters.
Where do you are you the youngest?
I'm the middle child.
Middle child.
Number 3. Yeah.
So instead of being ignored as a middle child, you shine with your unique talents.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay.
So I did go off to study medicine for a number of years.
Beautiful.
I found everything I learned to be fascinating.
Of course,
it's amazing when you learn how things happen or how things work.
Right.
It gives me that kind of a rush. But
I feel there's a but because you're calling an engineer.
Yes. The but was when I started working in the hospital.
Okay.
I realized that was a mistake. I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life.
You studied for 5 years. Where did you study?
In Ireland.
Ireland.
Yes.
Nice.
And this is when you did your residency at the hospital?
This was just during the final years of med school when we were doing our on-job
So what is it that you
training.
didn't like, though? So you stepped into the hospital. What exactly did you not like? What you didn't find yourself there?
I didn't. No, it was the thought of, am I going to wake up every day for the next 25 years and love showing up at a place like this?
Back in high school, before they told you to study medicine, was there something else on your mind that you wanted to study?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
It was drilled into me that I had to do
had to do
something
this.
more medical. Let's say because my mother's a nurse, so maybe that was kind of a bit of
What about the other siblings? Were they forced into medicine?
The first one was, and she ended up as a doctor in psychology. So she's
okay. There we go.
But she likes it. She likes it. Sure,
likes
different
yeah,
passions.
absolutely.
So after we decided that, hey, this is not for me. What happened? Surely that's like a crisis. Like, what am I doing?
It felt like my entire world was crumbling.
Of course, I can only imagine.
You were almost done with your education.
Yes, I was about a year and a half, 2 years shy of graduating. But that's when I sort of slammed the brakes. I'm like, this is not what I want to do.
Okay.
It's going to upset a lot of people.
How was the backlash? That's the question.
I was a disappointment for the longest time. I was pushed to try and sort of
get
back into it, but like here in Kuwait.
Right.
But all the signs said no.
So you have to do what makes you kind of thing. That's your life.
But at the same time, you didn't really know what else to do.
No, and I was given very limited choices. So my sister was attending a college here in Kuwait. And my father was just like, you know what? Check out what courses they have available and pick one. Okay. Just so you guys could go to college together in the morning.
Sure. Yeah.
So at that point, I'm just like, you know what? Why not?
Okay.
And the aviation engineering course is what stood out. I was like, yeah, that
Even
sounds
though you
like
never had a
something.
dream as a child to be a pilot?
No, not at all. All I knew
Never
was
saw
I
yourself
enjoyed
in
the
that.
physics.
Okay.
And I went along with it. And my love for physics in aviation made me turn to even cars. So I'm a
car mechanic.
Well, I can work on a car.
Can work on a car.
I have worked on my own cars. So,
Nice.
So you saw this major and you made a complete shift. Did you not have the fear that what if I step into this new field and also feel the same way?
I did, but there was no way of knowing until I reached the end.
Oh, right.
And that's when it hit me that, you know what, I am destined to do this because it's fun.
Nice.
And it's difficult, but
So
it's still fun.
you pursued aviation engineering in Kuwait?
Yes.
Kuwait University?
No, it's in the Australian College.
In Kuwait?
Which is,
Okay.
now it's the Australian University, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
But how was that experience? Was that what you were looking for after leaving med school?
I didn't know what I was looking for, so I knew what I didn't want. So I was open to exploring, and I enjoyed the hands-on work.
You fell in love with it
I
through
did,
the process.
It was a lot of fun, and to work on something every day, and it's going to be a different thing every day.
Of course.
That was the major selling point.
But is that the major differentiator between the experience in the hospital and the experience that you have now? That the fact that it's just challenging every day, different every day? But
the fact that the mechanics part is interesting is one thing aside. I think I probably didn't have the heart or the stomach to continue as a doctor because I'm very sensitive. And just seeing anyone suffer was just kind of like,
it's not easy. It's not easy,
I don't
honestly.
want to be here.
It's a very difficult thing.
It is. And your people skills have to be on point because a lot of people don't listen when you say specific words in medicine. If you say, the big C word, if you say cancer, people just go deaf.
Of course.
Right.
So part of our training back in the hospital was, you know what, here's a patient's file. Can you give me a diagnosis? It's like, okay, this person has this. It's like, great. You should go and tell her. And this, I cannot forget this patient. She was an 80-plus-year-old woman who had stage 4 cancer.
Tough.
And her husband had just passed away. So I had to find a delicate way of...
Yeah.
That's very tough.
It is tough.
That's very,
very
tough.
tough.
It is one of those things you don't
Breaking
really
the
think
news,
of.
yeah.
You get trainings for those, but I mean, fair enough. So you didn't
It's
feel
not the world that suited you.
No,
And you
not
never
at
saw
all.
yourself in it, and I get the family pressure. So aviation engineering, are you also a pilot?
No,
You fly planes as well?
No,
Okay, I
we're
was
the
like,
guys
yeah.
who fix the planes.
Fix the planes. But I guess you know how to fly a plane at some
I
point.
mean,
Yeah.
there's an autopilot button, but when it comes to manual, probably not.
Yeah.
I need a little bit of
okay.
help there.
Okay. But the engineering parts. So what do you currently do on planes? Do you check them for safety, for commercial
Yeah.
planes? Is that what you
Is
work
that
I
for?
do work in commercial. Aviation. I partially work on the aircraft, but for now, the major part of my job is actually design.
Design.
Design of what exactly?
Designing new aircraft for the company.
Interesting.
So it's very, very
Yeah.
interesting when
Could you make the seats bigger?
we're working on it. We're working on
You're
it.
pushing me to business just because the seats are small.
But that's it.
That's the
Business
trick.
class experience is
All right.
wonderful, isn't
So
it?
you're designing full planes now?
Yes.
Okay, but
planes.
surely the lead time from idea to execution, what are we talking about?
Okay, well, it's from idea to we're starting to
Yeah,
prep for a
yeah,
new
yeah.
aircraft takes about 3 years.
Wow. Wow.
If it could take longer depending on the airline as well.
And
Depends how much time you have.
And when someone wants to design a plane, is there just a general design
You follow
team,
standards,
or do you
or-
have specialization?
Can
no,
you get
everyone
creative?
is specialized
Everyone's
in
specialized.
their particular field. Like I'm not the only person doing
Right.
the design. The entire engineering team is composed of about 6 people.
Okay, and you're
And all
designing.
of us make those creative or those decisions
Right.
on what we want in the next aircraft.
And how creative can you get with the designs?
Depends on the budget.
Depends on the
really.
budget.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but no, it's fun to work with a budget as well. I mean, you don't know where you could be saving and where you could be putting the budgeted amount, and it's very rewarding.
Very
And the
good.
advancements that they're going through is crazy. Honestly, I've been seeing the new flights that are just so different to what I'm used to.
I actually attended a couple of months ago in Hamburg, Germany. They had something called the Aircraft Interiors Expo.
Interesting.
Which is basically this big expo of every company that has anything certified to put on an aircraft. So anything from satellites to fancy windows to leather suppliers, whatever have you. It's insane, the advancements that are coming.
Interesting.
And we're going a lot towards sort of the eco-friendly market.
Of course.
And then
is that the direction you see the aviation industry going towards in terms of building new planes?
From what I've seen, yes, everyone is
trying to reduce the carbon footprints.
Yeah,
right.
But then you have the other companies who are coming up with technologically insanely advanced things like, you know, a lot of times when people travel a lot, you worry about like aches and pains and like issues with your blood vessels and clotting and whatnot. They've designed seats that will show you where you need to move in order to avoid that. Let's say you're in a long haul flight, and the seat will come up on the screen
and tell you to adjust your
you need to move a little bit, and will tell you.
It's interesting.
It's insane.
But why would the airline go the extra mile to do that kind of thing for the consumer?
Those, I believe, are probably more veered towards luxury airlines or private airlines.
You get what you pay for, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
But I see.
You know, one of the things that shocked me so much recently, so the blinders.
Right.
So I was on this plane going to the UK, and I was looking, and there's no blinders. I didn't know it's automatic. I've never been on.
It's a button. You press.
And suddenly the sun was so bright, and then I look on the TV and I look back at the window, and suddenly it was night. So I put I literally stick my face to the window. I'm like, how did it suddenly?
But you didn't control that.
No, I think it's just a central control. It was so advanced to the point where it literally felt like the moon was outside. It's not the sun. You could look straight at it. And I started looking at my watch. I was like, how did time pass by so quickly? It's nighttime. But it's genuinely, I'm talking just the blinders. Imagine imagine what they can do with other things then.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about safety though? What's the advancements on safety? Because I know for now, all I know is just a belt and that's it.
Well, safety, obviously there are standards in safety. We have emergency equipment. If we're talking inside the cabin safety, that's one story. But then you have
safety.
The safety of the entire aircraft. Honestly, if you look at the statistics, it's a lot safer to fly than it is to drive. Again, this is statistically speaking.
Yeah, because we drive more than we fly, so I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we're in control of the driving, and there's just the pilot for the plane. So.
But also, the airplanes are designed so beautifully that the aircraft would have to fail anywhere between 4 and 8 times before you're in trouble. So I could sit here and draw all the diagrams for you, but it's fascinating how safe it is to fly.
That's actually reassuring. Thank you so much for that.
Would you say you would feel safe in a plane that's crashing, you know what to do, and have it not go bad?
I mean, I'd say just stay at the very back of the plane.
Stay at the very back.
I was literally watching a video today.
Stay at the very back. Why the back?
It's the safest place to be.
Because it's crashing like this? Okay.
So if it ever happens, just run to the back.
Run to the back.
Business class isn't really the safest place to be.
So they should flip them then. Business class at the end, economy at the
start.
No,
economy is way more. So we care about the people, you know, business people. They don't.
And no, the placement of the seats also depends on weight and balance and the center of gravity. You can't just put anything anywhere you like.
Right.
These are
weight distribution.
This is where the physics kind of comes in.
But I don't see it being that way today. So for example, if I was to book a flight, you can book any seat regardless of your weight, height, doesn't matter.
True.
Yeah, so
but no, we're talking about the equipment.
The equipment.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And also cargo is a big factor.
Cargo makes a big difference as well. The thing with weight, it also depends on temperature. Let's say if it's a little too hot, you can't actually put as much fuel in the aircraft as you would like to. Let's say there's a flight that goes for 12 hours.
There's 16
but
hours.
Because it's so hot on the ground, we can't give the entire amount of fuel.
So what do you do?
they have to take a detour somewhere else.
Oh,
to
that's not
refuel.
good.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Can't refuel in the air. That I know.
You can.
You
can,
can?
but
You
not,
can.
not with our aircraft.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, you
It has
can.
to be
Well,
top fill.
Top fill.
You can. I've seen that. It's the.
But
It's,
am I Tom Cruise on top of a
You
plane doing
should-
the whole thing?
you should
I've actually
watch it.
seen. You know, I met
Wow.
someone that does that. I met
Oh, for
someone. I was asking what your job is. He's like, I am the guy that fuels a plane in midair. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
That's the craziest
in
thing
my
I've ever heard.
life. And
So they literally go in midair and refuel. That's
Yeah. What's stopping you?
I don't know, Tom Cruise. Maybe try that. I don't know. Just try that next time. Wow, this world of aviation, it's just stole you from medicine.
It did. And the irony behind it is I also work partially in a section that takes care of medical cases.
Okay.
So it's sort of the connection between the medical side and the engineering side. So when I see, oh, really, we need this equipment because this patient has this disorder,
Yeah.
I can kind of visualize what is exactly needed.
Of course.
So,
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, we have a lot more questions to ask you. We're just
Yeah.
going to have to go on a very quick break. I'll be right back with you. All right? We'll be back. Continuing the conversation today about aviation, planes, and all the amazing technologies that we're seeing.
That is a topic we haven't had on this show, I believe.
We actually haven't. We
Aviation,
actually haven't. If I was to ask you in the past few years of experience, what's the most fascinating thing that fascinates you as a person in this field? What is it? What is it about it that makes you fall in love with it?
It's been the same thing from the start. The idea that you're taking a bunch of metal, I'm just saying this, quote unquote,
Okay.
a bunch of metal, literally throwing it up in the air with a bunch of people and their things, and they're landing safely somewhere on the other side. So it's just knowing how things are built from the ground up. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not magic, really.
When you think about it, honestly, when you think actually about a plane, because I remember seeing my friends studying the same field, essentially. I remember they were learning about helicopters, and I could see how much pressure they had and how stressful that was. Because a machine that looks just a machine that flies. But when you think about it, the endless engineering that is needed in this machine is mental, to be honest.
And what you need to know is the only thing that makes any of these things work is air. It's just manipulating air, and that's what's making the aircraft fly. So it's the complexity and the simplicity behind it as well. It's wonderful. There is one feature I can think of right now where we get our inspiration from nature. Like if you've ever seen aircraft with sort of like flicked tips
That's true.
on the
Yeah,
ends,
that's true.
those are winglets. Those were taken from the design of an actual bird that flies over long distances. And this bird could fly sort of right above the surface of the water. And because of the shape of its wings, it creates a positive pressure between itself and the water, so it reduces its energy output. So again, to me, that's insane. That's fascinating. And with that shape, it reduces the turbulence. And with reduction in turbulence, you have fuel efficiency and yada yada.
Fascinating.
Speaking of fuel, are we moving towards the future where we can have electric planes, or is that not a thing?
I don't think that's going to be a thing.
'Cause you
not
can't-
commercially
Not
for
commercially,
a very long
very
time.
long time.
Because of?
Reliability. You can't 100% rely on something electric. Like even the most advanced of planes now always have a manual backup because you just never know.
Right.
There's something called a ram air turbine, which is on almost every aircraft, which is basically if you run out of hydraulic power, of electric power, and you have no means of creating any sort of power, your aircraft will drop this turbine, which just with movement will generate electricity and hydraulic power just so you can land safely. So it's like you don't even need power for it to work. It just needs to be dropped.
Right.
And then air is what's going to save you again at one time.
Question about Ahmed asked you earlier. Because when you dropped medicine, and obviously you had that backlash, and hey, you were supposed to be a doctor, now what are you doing? What's your place today, like in terms of your relationship with the people around you that used to judge you before, whether it's family or friends or whatever?
Oh no, they are very happy that I
Okay.
made the change eventually.
Of course.
It was sort of, my parents were worried, like, you know, you worked so hard. What if you do this again and end up with no career? So I had to prove, kind of, to them that I made the right choice. All these years later, people still say, oh, but you could have been a doctor. Just like, but I'm happy now.
Exactly,
Right.
you're fulfilled. You're fulfilled.
That's the thing people don't understand. You got to be happy with the job that you have, you know? You don't want to...
You reach a point where they don't really need to understand, as long as you have your peace and you get paid for something you love.
Hence the Instagram bio.
Would you say your line of work is dominated by men?
Yes, absolutely. And I'd say this
So you're one of the few Kuwaiti women in the industry.
Yes, there's
Right.
only a handful of us. However, you'd be surprised that this is not just a problem around here.
Globally.
It's a global issue. I mean, it's reached
Lack of female engineers in
we're
the
all
aviation industry.
in one WhatsApp group.
Globally?
Yes.
What?
No!
Yes, there's
Wait, all as in who? Are we talking all women?
the engineers that I am aware of are all in this one
All
WhatsApp.
All the
women?
female engineers,
Yes.
you mean?
Yeah.
What?
But why do you need a group that's just for the female
I was added to the
engineers?
group
Okay.
by a friend of mine who's the first female engineer in Bahrain.
Wow.
So that was kind of nice to have someone to relate to. And then she introduced me to this world of amazing women. And they're at opposite ends of the globe. And it's kind of nice that we can all relate to the same issues.
Right.
Of, you know what, your intelligence is questioned. How do you deal with things like that?
Why would your intelligence be questioned? What's the
Again,
difference?
it's a very male-dominated field. We weren't very welcome in the beginning because it was kind of strange to have a woman in a place like this.
I mean, for us here, it makes us proud that you've
Of course.
entered this industry and you're doing great, wonderful things in it and succeeding and probably gonna get promoted every once in a while, right?
Yeah, hopefully,
Well done, honestly. Well done. Well done.
Well done.
I kind of know. Speaking of that, I kind of think like I don't understand why is it male dominated. I mean, it's not a topic of gender in this episode, but like I kind of feel if it was actually a balance, I think there's a lot that both can bring onto the table.
Maybe it's just a job line that women don't see themselves into necessarily.
now it's becoming more and more.
That's
It's like an
good.
art
That's
though.
good.
It's
Yeah.
literally art for
Yeah.
me. Like what you're doing, you're designing a plane. Like that's art.
It's such an exhilarating experience.
I can only imagine, honestly.
When you're sat somewhere and you see an aircraft fly and you're just like, that's one of mine.
Wow.
It's an amazing feeling.
It's an amazing feeling, can only
And
imagine.
It's not something I don't think I could have achieved being a doctor.
Going back to doing something that's fulfilling for you, and here you are contributing, because like you're thinking about how you're contributing to that pieces of metal, as you said, that are flying in midair and carrying 400, 300, 200 people from point A to point B, and it could be saving lives at some point. Someone could be going to a hospital, you know. So it's not something to be taken lightly. I mean, it's a huge technological advancement.
You're transporting lives instead of saving, but sometimes you do save them in the
transporting
process.
lives,
Yes,
exactly,
you know?
exactly.
That is true.
So that's a way to convince your parents.
Oh no, they're more than convinced.
They're more than convinced. That's good.
I think
That's
what
good.
the difference between, in your perspective, the difference between the medical direction and this direction is that the first was a job, this is a career.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
that's how I differentiate them.
It doesn't feel
Interesting.
like work when I go into work in the morning.
That's what everyone should strive for.
Yeah.
When it's not really work and you're getting paid for it, you know you made it.
Yes.
And you made it.
Thankfully.
Tell us about like what's the progress in this? Like what happens next for you? Because you didn't start at this position, but now you're designing planes. That means there's a lot of responsibility and trust in you.
Yes.
lot.
Well, I started off as just a trainee mechanic, so I was working hands-on on the aircraft with my overalls, getting all dirty. But eventually, I got my license as an engineer, and I think those initial years were so essential in humbling you and reminding you that just because you're someone's superior doesn't mean you look down on them. You appreciate their work a lot more when you know what they're going through. So I enjoy that. I like breaking barriers, really, in general. Like, I mean, I'm not saying I want to be CEO tomorrow, but I mean, it's in.
I mean, I love that
it's in the
about you, that you
distance.
want to break down barriers. And I want to get deep with you as we're getting to the end of the show. Love thyself. That's a quote on your Instagram.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? How important is that saying? What do you mean by that, having it on your Instagram?
It's such a basic concept of loving yourself. And you can throw it around as much as you want to. I love myself. But what does it mean? Do you love yourself as in, do you want yourself to be happy? Do you want yourself to be healthy? Do you want to do things only for yourself? Are you doing it for the greater good?
Right.
So this tiny little thing of loving yourself will eventually project outwards.
Loving yourself will help you love other people.
It will.
Yeah.
And you can only love to the extent that you can love yourself. So you're doing the entire world a favor by loving yourself. You can create a lot more positivity that way.
Absolutely. Well, I believe you're reaching your end. Do you have anything left to say?
No, I just actually would reflect that because I kind of feel that because you went through the journey of the changes in your life, perhaps that's where this sentence or this belief came from.
I would agree, definitely. And it was either going to make me or break me, and I wasn't ready to break.
Okay. There's a question that we have to ask you, all right?
Okay.
And it's about a statement that I'm not personally familiar with, but perhaps you can educate me about it.
Yeah.
Like, how about that? So when we say, like, which wolf to feed, okay?
Okay.
What does that mean to you? What bell does it ring in your head?
So when I say which wolf to feed, I'm pertaining to an old saying whereby they mention that you have two wolves living inside you. One that's happy and successful and living his life, and the other one that's sad and miserable. And now, how do you know which wolf wins? Because let's say the happier one turns you into a happy person, the sad one turns you into a miserable person. How do we know which wolf wins?
It's the one you feed?
It's the one you feed.
It's the one you feed.
If you don't feed it, it's not going to have the strength to overpower you.
And how do you feed it?
How do you feed it? There's a number of things you can do. Loving yourself enough to take care of your body.
Right. I love the whole quote, actually, and what it means. It's deep. I like it.
It's super deep, actually. I've never heard of it.
We're living in a very superficial world. It can be nice to just slow down and take it in.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. Honestly, beautiful quote, beautiful experiences, beautiful story, tremendous potential. I can see that for sure.
Thank you.
Right, wish you all the best.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for coming on the show.
No, honestly, beautiful story and Untold. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll be back for the wrap up right after this. What a lovely conversation we had today.
100%.
You know,
as expected, to be honest.
As expected, amazing. Just a strong, independent, powerful woman.
Absolutely, very knowledgeable, very wise.
Makes you feel proud for the woman in the country.
And she truly believes in herself.
Yeah, and I love the quotes. You know, love yourself, you know, maybe write a letter to yourself, a future self, telling them that everything you love about yourself.
You know, the fact that she started off as something very tiny in that field and now she's designing planes. I think this is, as I said, there's a lot of trust in her, which means that she's really doing her job very well. So she said, and obviously being a CEO is a kind of like a thought in her mind, but I really don't think it's too far away.
Nope. Nothing's far away if you put your mind to it and you're determined.
You can see the passion. It's very clear. It's very clear.
And one request: make the plane seats bigger.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
I'm fine.
You're fine. I'm not. Well, that's all for tonight's episode of The Untold. Join us next time for a new story, more laughs, and hopefully
more experiences.
Good night.